Welcome to the Beaver Banter podcast. My name is CJ Baumgartner, joined by my co-host Ian Rivers. And Ian, if you look on the video stream, I'm in a different spot for my normal recording location. I'm at my 9 to 5 right now, just kind of chilling out in the back room. So if audio or things sound a little wonky, we'll blame it on that today.
Yeah, I've also got a slightly new setup. We've got a bed in this room now. My dog gets to chill and hang out with the recording. Normally she is in here. She's just in. She's not seeable. I don't know why I'm blanking on
she's out of
proper
frame.
English, but yeah, she's out of frame. There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all kind of in different setups. We're figuring out work schedules and changing. We're changing. It's the new year. That's kind of what we're working on here.
Yeah, you come for the takes on Bemidji State, and you stay to see if Ian's dog is going to do anything during the live stream.
Normally she just sleeps there, but you may hear the occasional weird noise out of her as she rolls over in her sleep.
I think when you get off on a Chargers tangent on a Bemidji State podcast, I think then she'll start to kind of bark at you.
Yeah, that's good. That's why we have her here. Thankfully, mercilessly, the season has come to an end, or mercifully, I should say. The season has come to an end, and now we just get to focus on draft season. The Chargers have a top 5 pick, and that's ever since I've been watching. That's the highest they've ever been. The other highest was, of course, picking 6th when we got Mr. Justin Herbert. So I have high expectations for this pick.
I can't wait for also noted Michigan State fan Ian Rivers to be cheering for them to hire a Michigan Wolverine and Jim Harbaugh as head coach.
Dude,
but that's neither here nor
there. If I've kind of disconnected myself from Michigan State football. I don't watch as much college football as I used to, so that's probably part of it. But you're damn right. If Michigan won that national championship, Jim better be coming to the Harbaugh. Harbaugh better be coming to the Chargers, man.
What's it going to be like when he takes all the money in the world to go coach the Raiders?
That's the scary thing about that, is that we know that Mark Davis. We know that he'll pay. He will give Jim whatever he wants if we get in a bidding war with him. And so he paid Josh McDaniels a boatload of money to come coach there for
because
he's qualified. That's why we paid him.
Anyway, so for Bemidji State sports, it's been a weird January, and I think that pretty much can be the title for the podcast. Is a weird January so far for Beaver sports. I mean, it's in the little banner down below, but it's schedule wise, Ian, it's been kind of weird.
Yeah, it's been a really slow last month for us. Women's hockey has only played 4 games since December 8th. Men's hockey has played more consistently, but they've still had some off weekends in there, and now they have another one, and then they'll come back and play another game, and then they'll have another off weekend before they finally finish up their schedule with February and early March. Basketball is just now getting back into the full swing of things after damn near a month off in both cases. So it's been a light schedule, and it's been a little bit difficult to find enough to feel like you're squeezing out a full podcast sometimes. But other than that, yeah, I mean, and it's been weird too, just because of the inconsistencies that I think we're seeing with some of the teams and weird results in some games. And I'm sure we'll touch on that here coming in the next half hour or so.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about with the Bemidji State stuff. We got men's hockey with a full weekend. We have men's and women's basketball back into the fold. Why don't we start things off with men's basketball, Ian? I didn't get a chance because of my job. I was working during most of the basketball game on Friday night between the Beavers and the Mustangs. Don't know why I was blanking on that for a second there. But it was all Southwest Minnesota State on that game. I look at halftime and we're tied. It's okay, 2 teams pretty close. I expected to be tied around halftime, and then just a second half that Bemidji State would want to forget.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I mean, it wasn't a bad game offensively for BSU. They shot pretty well, all things considered. 53% from the field, 42% from downtown, and 75% from the line. They actually shot better than Southwest Minnesota State in literally every category. But you know what? What's the one thing that's going to kill a team? we had twice the turnovers. We had 18 to Southwest's 9 turnovers, and that's always a big thing. We talk about Bemidji State. Most of the games that we've seen them get in trouble. The Northern State game earlier this year, they had quite a few more turnovers than Northern did, and it bites them again here on the road. And both of those games have been on the road. So maybe that's something we have to watch out for, deeper into the season, see if we can cut down on the turnovers, especially on the road against these kind of not low-level teams, because they're both up in the top, echelon, top half. Northern State's right below Bemidji State right now, Southwest right above Bemidji State. So they're decent teams, but Bemidji, you would hope that they could put up at least a little bit better of a fight in that game, because it was actually an 11-point deficit at halftime for
I'm
Southwest.
looking here, a 14-0 run to end the half. And if you do the math correctly, it kind of basically tells you that they were winning at that point in the second half or in the first half, and let things get away, and all of a sudden you're just not able to catch up, which like you talked about, turnovers are killer. And they shot well, they played good defense for the most part, they did this and that, but when you give your opponent extra possessions and when you have empty possessions on your end, of course it's going to snowball. And when two teams are equal in talent and kind of record and all that, and when you add all those turnovers in the game, of course it's going to end up feeling like a blowout, because you gave them so many extra possessions, they were going to take advantage.
Yeah, and the second chance points is another big thing. Southwest had 14 second chance points in this game on 14 offensive rebounds. That's something that Bemidji State is probably not too happy about, especially since they're one of the better rebounding teams in the league, or in the NSIC, in the conference, I should say. But yeah, it's just, it's a tale of sloppy basketball, turnovers, not cleaning up the glass. There's nothing more frustrating as a defender than playing a good, solid possession defensively, and then it's all for nothing because you give up an offensive board and there's just nothing you can do about it. There is, but a lot of times it's the most deflating thing, as a defender. So yeah, hopefully they can clean that up going into the future.
The thing is you can clean up turnovers. That's pretty easy, but also, it's been a couple, I know that they haven't played in what feels like a month, but we talked about Bemidji State having a game in Aberdeen get away from them because they got sloppy with the basketball and they lost the turnover battle pretty hard. And it's just not gonna go well for them. And it's what leads to a 14-0 run, and not only a 14-0 run to end the first half, also a 7-0 run by the Mustangs to begin the second half. The game was over with 19 minutes to go. It takes you out of the game completely. So like you said, offensive rebounds, turnovers, those are things you can't give yourself that many empty possessions and expect to win a basketball game. Now, luckily for the Beavers, they were able to get a split, which we said a split we'd totally be fine with. So for as bad as that Friday night game was, they redeemed themselves on Saturday, got a split on the weekend. Tennyson, game winner, another dramatic finish for Bemidji State. I think it's their third this season. Yeah,
their third game winner of the season. Johnny Tennyson goes I think it was a 3-point shot, right? I kind of had my mouth agape there for a second, and it's because I saw the amount of lead changes in this game. 27 lead changes in a basketball 27? Game. That's insane. That means that for most of this game, at least 60 to 70% of this game, it was literally a back and forth affair where one team would score and then the other team would score, and the literally back and forth. I'm trying to look at some other close games that the Beavers have played here to see whether or not the lead changes are any bit similar. The overtime game they played against St. Cloud State, there was only 18 lead changes, and then who was their other game winner against? Minnesota Crookston, I believe. That's a 1-point game.
Yep.
13 lead changes in that game. So quite literally double the amount of lead changes from the Minnesota Crookston game. That would have been insane. And I'm upset now that I was not watching that game closer when it happened. Of course, it was at 3:30, and I was visiting my grandmother. That's where I was. That was on Saturday. So not able to watch that game for the most part. And then by the time I had gotten home, to be honest, kind of forgot that it was going on that early in the day. So
those Saturday
missed
games
it.
sneak up on you.
They do, because they're weirdly early, and it always just I end up looking at Twitter and I'm like, oh, we won a basketball game. Cool. But I wish I would have thought about it.
Well, and I think the reason is because the girls' games go immediately after. So if a game starts at 3:30, gets done around 5:30. You start the girls' game around 6. That ends around 8.
Right.
You want, because it's travel. I think it's travel related, because on Friday night the games are later to give teams time to travel over there, and they want them done earlier on the Saturday to get, from they had to drive from Sioux Falls back up to Bemidji, so it's basically give them a couple extra hours to make their way back up.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Turnovers in this game for BSU, they cut it down a little bit. They only had 14 compared to 18. The big difference was they took the ball away 13 times, so the turnover battle was very close in that game. That's another reason that you kept it a little bit closer. Points in the paint, 32-36. BSU actually got outscored in terms of points in the paint. It's not much to say about box score, just because of the fact that the game was so close. You can't really take anything away from it. John Sutherland
pretty much just came down to whoever had the ball last.
Yeah, and that's literally what happened. Is the Beavers ended up getting the ball last and won the game on a game-winning shot from Johnny Tennyson. John Sutherland with 35 points in this game. That's a pretty insane number. He shot an insane 13 of 17 from the field and got to the free throw stripe quite a few times, shooting 9 of 11 from the line. So pretty big day for Sutherland there.
Yeah, just another good game from him. It felt like for a while there was a couple quieter games. Not necessarily that he'd been stymied or something like that, but you could just tell like there's that wrinkle. Teams are trying to stop Sutherland. They're trying to make their adjustments now that they've seen enough games from Bemidji State. And to have him with another big game is just important. And, we kind of talk about it, that inside-outside game, and the fact of that the Beavers can play great down low. And if they can counter it with good three-point shooting as well, they're tough to stop. And you can see it for Bemidji State when you look at the three-point percentage, about 5% better than USF that night, with about a 35% clip from the three-point line. But yeah, this Bemidji State team is, that's kind of their formula, and it's good to see him get back to that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in terms of conference standings, BSU, I think they're going to be in a dogfight. That's what it seems like, at least early in the season here. Kind of a dogfight for one of those top 4 spots. Right now, they're sitting in 6th place, but, it's still pretty early in the season, so standings are still going to be pretty tight. As you get towards the end of January, you'll see some teams kind of separate themselves in those standings. But, big weekend coming up, because you've got I believe, depends on where you look, but number 2 ranked Minnesota State Mavericks, undefeated 14-0 team. So that will be a test. Of course, the games this weekend are in Bemidji, so that
Bemidji
will be
State undefeated at home.
Undefeated at home. We'll see where that ends up. After this weekend. But hey, if there's ever a chance you're going to do it, go ahead and get that upset. Minnesota State, maybe they're playing a little too comfortable. Maybe they think, all right, we're 14-0. We're just going to clean up on this conference outside of maybe MSU Moorhead. But I think this is a good opportunity for Bemidji State. That Winona State game on Saturday, that'll be a little bit more important. They're currently right behind you at 4-4. Bemidji State 5-3 in the conference. So that'll be a big game. And if you can steal one against Minnesota State, you get your confidence up. That's definitely would be a huge win for the program. But probably a little tough to go ahead and predict a win in that one. You're going to hope for the best, but you're probably looking at what I would say is hopefully a split this weekend, and then we'll move forward after that. But yeah, I think so far everything's pretty much going according to plan for BSU men's hoops. 9-5 overall, 5-3 in the conference. Maybe if you were a little bit more optimistic, you'd be a little disappointed that some of these games, especially Northern State and Southwest, have gotten away from you as much as they have. But at home, they're damn good. So we'll see this weekend, I guess, if that home field advantage or home court advantage actually does turn into a big benefit for them.
Well, and you're right. Where Bemidji State is at, if you would have asked somebody at the beginning of the year, based off how last year ended, if you were to ask us at the beginning of the season, would you take 9-5 on January 9th? Is that something you'd be okay with? And 5-0 at home, conference record at 5-3, and you'd be like, yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that where it's at this point in the season. Obviously the way it went with some games like you talked about, obviously you want those ones back, but I thought they played really well against MSUM on the road. They just countered with a really bad road game in Aberdeen, but MSUM by some polls is number 1 in the country. First time in program history that they've been able to do that. And they've had some pretty darn good basketball teams over the last few years, specifically when you look at those teams from like 4 years ago that had Bryce Ersfeld on them and some other guys. But when you look at MSUM, they're good. And Bemidji State took them down to the wire on their home floor. So there's no reason to think that Bemidji State can't have a fighter's chance at pulling off an upset on their home floor against Mankato, who's ranked right behind them at number 2 in that same poll I'm referencing. So this is going to be a good one. This has the potential to be a good one. Maybe that's the better way to word it. Because if you turn the ball over and you don't get those offensive boards, you're going to get slaughtered on your home floor against a team like Mankato. It's just going to happen. But if you limit those turnovers and you play the boards like you normally do, this has a chance to be one of the most fun games we've seen all year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bemidji State can hang with them, but it's going to take a hell of an effort. You're not going to be able to, like you said, come out and play sloppy, because you start that against a 14-0 team, and it's going to get pretty ugly pretty fast, and it's going to be even more difficult to come back in a game like that. So, yeah, I think they do have a chance. Minnesota State shoots the 3 ball extremely efficiently, 40% from the line this year as a team. Bemidji State, second to last in the conference in that statistic at 33.2%. So, and they defend the 3 ball pretty well as well, 29%. So they're top of the metrics, and as you would expect, just about every single category, including scoring. They average 92.6 points per game. So they are quite the good team. Bemidji State, though, top 5 in team defense allowed in the conference. So I think it'll be a good game if Bemidji State comes out and does their thing early. I think, like you said, focus on rebounding the basketball, focus on not turning the ball over. These are 2 of the best rebounding teams in the league. So, yeah, I think it'll be a good game. At least I hope, because, no men's hockey this weekend. So go ahead. Tune into the basketball teams on Friday and Saturday. So, excuse me. That game against Minnesota State will be at 5:30. Yes, horns down. That game will be 5:30 on Friday at the BSU Gymnasium. Go get out and watch that game. You certainly want to be there if the upset happens. We saw the atmosphere against St. Cloud State earlier this year for women's volleyball when they upset a top 10 team in the country. So get out there and go watch that game. If you don't live in the area,
students should be back for that one too.
Students should be back. Yeah, they should already be back on campus from what I believe. Yep, they should be there. Students, get out there and watch that. And then 3:30 on Saturday against Winona State. So predicting a split this weekend, but,
Predicting a split feels optimistic even.
It does.
That's just with how good it basically makes a 50-50 game against Winona a must-win game.
Yeah, essentially. So, yeah, if you can go out and pick up a big upset against Minnesota State, that's awesome and that's fun. And we'd love to see it, but.
Yeah. Love to see it. And this is the other thing too. You mentioned the 3-point shooting team. 3-point shooting, especially, in some of these games, can be fluky a little bit. Like there can be times where you're in the right defensive spot, you get your hand up, you're there the entire time, and a guy just makes a shot on you. Like there's nothing Like, you ever have that happen in a game where somebody makes a play and you can't even be mad because you're like, well, he made a good move. I was in the right spot. Like, there's nothing I can do. That guy's clearly just it. So it'll be interesting to watch if Mankato has a good shooting night. Is it because they're getting wide open looks, or is it because they're just one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country and they're just kind of doing their thing? So that'll be a fun one to watch. Ian, let's talk a little women's basketball. They over the weekend did not have things go their way. On Friday night, what are you looking at here?
Yeah, it was an offensive affair on Friday night. 72-86 loss against Southwest Minnesota State. Just it wasn't quite enough right from the get-go. They were down 9, and then I think at halftime, they're down. I can't do the math quite quick enough in my head. Maybe 16 points at halftime, if I'm doing that correctly. So that's a big hole to come out of. Especially against a Southwest Minnesota State team who is 8-6 now on the season, 6-2 in the NSIC. So they're up towards the top of the conference in terms of the standings, at least. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't even much that Bemidji State, I would say, did totally wrong. They only turned the ball over 9 times. They didn't shoot particularly well from 3-point range, but they only shot 10 threes. But of course, making only one of those, shooting 10%, is going to be probably the big downfall there. But like I said, you didn't take a ton of them, so it's not like it's not like you missed 19 threes in this game and shot 4 of 23, and you were just chucking them up hoping they were going to go in. I think they kind of maybe realized that it was not working out for them and tried to get away from it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a matter of SMSU is a better team, and Bemidji State, unfortunately for them, they've got to bring one of their better games if they hope to compete with a lot of teams in this league. And that it didn't seem to happen against Southwest. We can't hear you, CJ.
Muted mics. You gotta love online.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, so when you look at it for Bemidji State, I mean, SMSU is one of the top teams in the NSIC, sitting right now with the 7-2 conference record and 9-6 overall. They're a good team. You scored a lot of points. You gave up a lot of points, and it's at least one where you can walk away and go, you know what, we had our moments. Let's try and go get a game. And that's when he went to Sioux Falls, a team that's in the middle tier of the conference. Again, Southwest up in the top tier. You have Sioux Falls in that middle tier. And that's where really you had your chance to get a win. And all of a sudden that offensive affair turned into a defensive slugfest, 48-34, and you lose in that one. And that one felt like the one that kind of, if you're going into the weekend, you're like, okay, well, probably won't win against Southwest, but can we go into Sioux Falls and can we win? And they weren't able to do that. And it opens up a weekend where it kind of looks the same. So Minnesota State is 7-1 in the NSIC. They're number 1 in women's. And when you look at where Winona State is at, they're 3-5, right below Sioux Falls, who is 4-5 right now. So it's an opportunity again, just see how you run on Friday night. And Saturday night is that chance to try and get your split and get your win on the weekend. Ian, what are your thoughts from the weekend, and what does Bemidji State need to do to try and get that split?
Yeah, I mean, play with a little bit more offensive efficiency or consistency. I mean, like you said, 72 points on Friday nights turns into 34 on Saturday night. Yeah, Winona State only 4 wins on the season overall. I think that's definitely the more winnable of the 2 games. So you're at home. The game's at 5:30. See what you can do in that game. But even still, like I said, probably gonna have to pull out one of your better performances of the season, even against a team like Winona State. But if they can do that, if they can play consistently and just shoot efficiently, like I said, 1 of 10 is not going to get it done against many teams in any, conference or sport or any, and 3 of 20, as I was talking about, at least they didn't chuck up a ton of them and miss a ton of them. They went 3 for 20 against Sioux Falls. And so they still shot pretty inefficiently and just took more shots. So hope for a little bit more shooting efficiency if you want any chance to try to pull off and get your first conference win of the season. But I guess it's kind of where we're at. Just got to see where it goes and hope for the best.
Taking a deep dive into the game on Saturday in Sioux Falls is fascinating. You mentioned the 3 for 20 on 3-point tries, but if you look at Sioux Falls, they were 1 of 13. I mean, both teams. Bemidji State shot 26.5% from the field. Sioux Falls shot 30%. Bemidji State was 15% from 3. Sioux Falls was 7.7%. From the free throw line, Bemidji State was 5 of 7. But from the free throw line, Sioux Falls was 13 of 19. So there's a few different things that stick out to you in this game. One is just Bemidji State letting Sioux Falls get to the free throw line almost 20 times. But also, you look at second chance points. Ian, Bemidji State had 0.
They only had 1 offensive rebound all game.
And that's, if you're Coach Stoltenberg looking at the film, that's one where you're pointing out to your players and you're like, we can't be doing this. Like, it's not going to win you many ball games. And it's just it's just a game where both teams obviously had a lid on the rim. So both teams were going through it. And it's just sometimes one of those nights in basketball. And if you're the Bemidji State coaching staff, you can go in and say, look, both teams were struggling from the field. That will happen. But the things we can't let happen are the rebounding and letting them get to the free throw line so often. And it's those couple things that are much more in the control of a basketball team than it is sometimes how much your shots fall. And that's something that from a coaching staff standpoint, I'm sure they're hammering home this week. So it'll be interesting to see how Bemidji State responds over the weekend in women's basketball in the rebounding department and just in that second chance points. Because again, if you only have 1 offensive rebound, you can't, if you don't get it on that next shot, you had 0 second chance points. And when you look at points in the paint, Bemidji State had 16. They had 3 points off turnovers. USF had 20 points in the paint and 13 points off turnovers. So it's just one of those things where it all kind of piled up on you.
Yeah, I think you got to play with a little more aggression as well. You only shot 7 free throws in this game. That's just not enough, and especially when you're giving up 19 isn't even all that much. I don't think. Like, that's probably a pretty average amount of free throws per game, maybe a little bit over average. We shot 1 free throw in the first half. Like that, you got to get to the line more than 7 times in a game. That's only 4 different trips to the free throw line for 7 shots. You shot 5 of 7, that's 71%. That's not bad, but you got to get there more often. You got to play with some aggression. Get some people in foul trouble too. Like there's many benefits of getting to the free throw line. Throw a pump fake in there, get them in the air, go up into them or something. I don't know. You got to play with a little bit more aggression than that.
So moving on to men's hockey, and Ian, we mentioned to kind of end the broadcast last week that basically if they pulled off a series like they did against Lake State, you are going to be very happy camper. The good news is that they won on Friday pretty convincingly, and we don't talk about Saturday, but we're going to have to talk about Saturday. So why don't we start off with the good, talk about Friday's game, Ian?
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the good kind of starts and ends. Well, it doesn't start and end, but most of it is Mr. Matthias Scholl, because I think that many people who watched this game would kind of agree that Matthias Scholl played out of his mind. He made quite a few great saves in this game. You can go look at the CCHA Twitter page. They even gave him a shout out because of a couple incredible saves that he made.
Did you see that video that we have up on the Beaver banter page that we shared? I mean, that save was insane.
Yeah, he played out of his mind. So I don't think it was like a terrific game overall. But your goalie, he put out a great performance, which he is, he's capable of doing. That's not out of the realm of possibility. That's why you have him. You hope to get some of those from Mr. Scholl. But goal scorers. It was a great day for first time goal scorers. Reese Chiddington, the freshman, his first career goal. Kirkland Irie got his not first career goal. He scored quite a few. He's had a pretty good year this year. Leighton Road with assists on both of those goals, and Lundman threw an assist in as well. And then Dante Lawson, the Taconite boy from Greenway High School, he got his first career goal in the second period. Kind of a rebound goal on a breakaway. But hey, they all count the same. Congrats to Dante. And then Tony Fulmer, who picked up his first career point against Bowling Green, picks up his first career goal in an empty netter in the third period. Antonio Venuto, the lone goal scorer for Ferris State. So, yeah, not a bad game at all. There was definitely points of it where you're like, oh my gosh, like we were not controlling the game at all. I believe they got outshot by a slim margin in this game, but overall, you got the 3 points, and that was really what mattered because, we'll talk about Saturday and how bad it was. And honestly, just jumping into that game, I didn't think that the effort was all that great from the jump, and there are excuses for this team. There are, you're missing a hell of a lot of guys right now. Kyle Loaf just had surgery on his wrist. I think there's a chance that he could come back at some point this season. We don't know when or if that actually is officially true. So you're missing Kyle Loaf, Eric Polkamp, and Casper Magnuson. Still have not come back from World Juniors. They should be back not this next weekend because they have it off, but against Michigan Tech in a couple of weeks, they should both be back. Liam Engstrom also has not returned yet, but I believe he's returning from Sweden now to be with the team again. So hopefully that's a good sign on where he's at. I know there's other people. I know there's at least one other name. Obviously, Jackson Judding, his injury's been big. We've been dealing with that, and we don't really know what the timetable for him is. So we're missing plenty of players. Trust me. It's still a pretty slim team. So it'll be nice to get Casper back as well as Eric Polkamp, especially defensively. But yeah, I thought the effort from the get-go was a little shoddy, 39 seconds into the game. And then, another 5 minutes later, they had another one. And you're like, all right, this looks terrible already. It's just an inconsistent weekend. And Leighton Road was really the bright spot outside of Matthias Scholl. He had a shorthanded goal that we couldn't watch because, Ferris State doesn't want to get their shit together and actually put together a solid production crew. So we missed the last 3 minutes of the first period and got to miss Leighton Road's shorthanded goal. So we appreciate them for that. But yeah,
they were so embarrassed by it that they couldn't let it get out on video.
Yeah, they're like we feel like something bad's going to happen. Cut the video. We don't want anybody to see this power play. Because they went -1 on that power play. So, but yeah, they added another one, so it's 3-1. Every time Bemidji State would answer, Ferris State was just right back at it, and it just wasn't good enough. Leighton Road scored another one with a pretty good shot in the second period to make it 3-2. But then Trevor Taulun scores again. Tyler Schleppe makes it 5-2, and then Lewandowski adds one with 12 minutes to go in the game, and you're like, all right, if they're going to do it, it's got to be now. But man, there was 4 minutes at the end of the game where the Beavers had the goalie pulled, and they had plenty of puck possession. They just didn't ever get a grade A look, with the 6-on-5, and it was a little disappointing to not at least come away with one that hit off the pipe or, made the goalie made an amazing save. It was a pretty disappointing effort. I can't lie. And yeah, you missed a lot of guys, and there is plenty of reasons why. Even Ferris State, they're at home, and I think that they played pretty well, all things considered. They were making some passes that I'm like, this is the last place team in the CCHA doing this. Of course they're playing this good of a, they put it together on all their goals. It was nuts. It was probably a little bit of a defensive breakdown at the same time, but we got 3 points, and I think that that's the bare minimum where you're not going to completely hit the panic button and just start freaking out and being like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Yeah, if we have a Lake State series and we only get, 1 point out of it, then you're a little bit concerned about what could happen going forward. Because we lead the CCHA right now. Still, we're the only team that played besides Ferris State this weekend. 25 points, 4 points ahead of St. Thomas, 6 points ahead of Michigan Tech. But you have 2 games in hand, or St. Thomas has 2 games in hand against you. So if they sweep, they jump you. If Michigan Tech sweeps, they're tied with you, and they still have 2 games in hand after that. So this series against Michigan Tech in a couple of weeks is going to go a long ways for the Bemidji State Beavers' chances to win the CCHA. But, I mean, if you come away with that more points from that series, you're feeling really good about it. Even 4 points, I think I'd be like, well, yeah, we lost, whatever. We were shorthanded. At least we got to overtime and got a point out of it, or took it to a shootout, something. Just get something out of that second game. Weren't able to do it. And, most years you'd kind of be concerned where, yeah, we have games in hand. Our other teams have games in hand on us. At this point, with how the CCHA has looked this year, I kind of think I do like just already having the points. Yeah, we've played more games than them, but everybody in the conference has been so inconsistent. There's no guaranteeing that Michigan Tech and St. Thomas are just going to come out and sweep their next 2 opponents and jump us, and we'll be right back in it. That could happen, but there's no evidence this far into the season that is necessarily going to happen. It's just, lucky for us, the rest of the conference is terrible as well. Like this 2 weekends ago when we played St. Cloud State, like the whole conference just got embarrassed except for Michigan State or Michigan Tech. And I think we talked about that, but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a sit and wait, at this point. You got a series coming against Michigan Tech in a couple of weeks, but yeah, I mean, over the next month, you only are going to be playing for 6 conference points because you have a bye week, you go to Michigan Tech, you have a bye week, then you play at home against Augustana, and that won't count for anything other than pairwise points, which are worthless to everybody in our conference at this point. And then finally you finish out your season with a couple more, 4 more. You only have 6 more series of the regular season, so at this point it's just kind of sit and wait, see what other teams around you do. And then, every weekend you're going to reassess and figure out what you have to do. The path becomes clearer and clearer every weekend. And we'll talk more about the Tech series coming up next week. But, yeah, I think you kind of are going to want to come away with at least 3 points from that series just because of the implications of right now, after adding Austin Swankler, if there's any team I think that's going to turn it on in the second half, it's probably going to be Michigan Tech. So, it maybe we have a repeat of 2016-17 here where we're, staving off Michigan Tech towards the end of the season, knock on wood. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we don't know much more about the race for the CCHA title than we did going into the weekend. So unfortunately, we just kind of have to sit and wait.
So a couple things of positivity to mention. Leighton Road gets his first it says WCHA.
It says WCHA, but it should say CCHA.
CCHA. Yeah, I'm reading that off the BSU Beavers webpage, so that caught me off guard. Yeah, Leighton Road that's his first one of the season, so that's good for him to finally get that. And also, I think
surprising.
I think
because he's played so well, but I think it's kind of a combination of. He doesn't have like massive weekends ever. Like he just has like 4 or 5 point weekends, but that's kind of like the expectation for him.
Right. He's just consistently putting it out there. Yeah, he's not having a game that jumps off the page. He's just consistent. The average is his weekly output. That's not an average. It's not So, and anyway, the other one is that we need to honor a true American hero. And those of you on the screen, you can see my salute in the World Juniors USA.
I can only assume you're talking about Eric Polkamp, yeah.
Yes, I'm talking about Eric Polkamp. Seeing if you're going to jump in and be patriotic like me, but I see where you lie. I see where.
Why is he talking about Justin Herbert again? What the heck?
Okay, now how many gold medals has he won?
Hey, he would have plenty if they would let him compete for a gold medal in anything.
So Eric Polkamp getting to compete and he wasn't the headliner, but he was pretty impactful on that team.
Yeah, he had a couple goals, couple assists, and he stepped in. I don't remember who was injured for Team USA in maybe the quarterfinal game or something like that. Maybe it was the last group stage game. But he played some good minutes and he made his mark on the team. It's not like he just did a bunch of cardio out there. He was adding some value to that team, and he gets rewarded with a gold medal.
Yeah. So congratulations to him, and also means he gets to come back and help out a Bemidji State team for a stretch run.
Yeah, maybe he can bring some of that winning mentality back and a little bit more consistency, to this team. And hopefully, I mean, that's a big thing. Like we said before, this whole thing started with Eric and Casper going over there to play. The Beavers won 3 out of their 4 conference games, and it sucks to lose to St. Cloud State. You don't want to do it, especially in the fashion that you did. But like I said, when we're talking about what the Beavers want to accomplish this year, those St. Cloud State games are not standing in your way of getting that accomplishment done at this point. So as much as it sucks to go 0-6 against, your close regional rivals in the NCHC and all that, you went 3-1 in those games without those 4 guys. So I think, you'll take that. If you told us that going into it, that those 4 CCHA games without those players would be 3-1, I'll take it.
So what do you think this means overall for the program for Bemidji State to have a guy like Polkamp get there and be a part of that team? I mean, it's not too often a Bemidji State player gets to be on a World Juniors roster. How big is that for the program to have that happen?
Well, yeah, not just 1, but 2. I mean, Casper Magnuson, Norway didn't really make an impact in the tournament. I think they got relegated actually in the last place game or whatever. I'm not too addressed and adversed on how the World Junior Tournament actually works, but they got like dead last. So that's unfortunate for them. But yeah, to have 2 players and then one that plays for Team USA, because and there's something to be said about the European teams, because I know that like Finland especially has a history of like not taking any players from the NCAA because they just don't, they're going to trust their guys that play in the Finnish ranks or whatever. So I don't know how many other countries actually operate like that, but Team USA, that's a pretty tough roster to crack. There's a lot of talent, especially in the NCAA in terms of Americans. So just the fact that we had a guy like that that gets some exposure for the team and for the program, I think is a big thing. And, it's not like people don't know what Bemidji State is, but, maybe now, hopefully we can continue to play at least a little bit successfully and maybe make a run at the CCHA title. So, maybe now people have a little bit more of their eye on Bemidji State in the second half of the season here, or the back portion. Hopefully we can show them that this school's pretty okay at hockey this year.
And also with Polkamp having his week and with Gunnar Olszewski getting NFL Special Teams Player of the Week the week before,
yes,
because we forgot to mention it on last week's podcast. So here we are. We're mentioning now Gunnar Olszewski honestly, like as a punt returner, to keep your job, you have to have 1 punt return touchdown like every other year, and it pretty much guarantees you a job somewhere. So whether it's with the Giants or whether another team takes a chance on him, there's a good chance of that punt return touchdown got him an NFL job next year, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, he's had his troubles this year. We talked about that earlier, but yeah, being able to bounce to a different team after having the struggles he did in Pittsburgh earlier this season, and then have a play as impactful as that, and you can't ask for much more. Good for Gunnar. I'm glad he's still finding success in the NFL. He didn't, he's not just one of those guys that, I made the practice squad and had some success in preseason, but never really actually got on a team or anything like that. So it's good for him that he's been able to carve out a role in the NFL and keep that role for so long.
What a career arc for him too, because he comes in obviously it's the cool story, but catching passes from Tom Brady, then pivots to catching passes from Cam Newton, and then pivots to being on the Steelers and that whole thing, and then pivots to this, being on the Giants and getting that punt return touchdown. So it's really cool. It's really cool to get to see that play out, and hopefully he's got a few more seasons left in him. Ian, let's finish up talking a little women's hockey because they played this weekend. They did not play last week. They're back in action. They're on the road. They're in Duluth, number 7 team in the country. Not looking great.
Let's play some close games. That's really all I can say about this. Just I think we've seen some level of improvement from this team so
I
far
think
this
so.
season. And so I think that, keep building off that, play some close games. God forbid you get into overtime, steal a point, steal 2 points because you get a fluky 3-on-3 goal or something. Let's see. What's the last time they played Duluth? I believe they were leading heading into the third period on Friday. I think that was that game. Yes, they had a 1-0 lead heading into the third period in the Sanford Center. And then, of course, Saturday was 6-0 for Duluth. So, yeah, at the very least, play another close game like that against the Bulldogs, a top 10, top 7 team in the country. And, just score some goals, anything to take some positivity out of this weekend, I think would be a big win.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for the Beaver Banter podcast, Ian, unless there's something you really want to get to. But I think we've checked all the boxes.
Yeah, I think we're done.
I think so. So you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as the Beaver Banter Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X, whatever, YouTube pages. We're all up there all as well. We're going to be back next week. There's going to be another full week of Bemidji State action to talk about, and we'll be right there. And one more time, Ian, we gotta flash the horns down for the camera. It's a good shot to end.